A Light Within Darkness Chapter 103 Fan Fiction by Azazyel. The world rumbled as the Ork Attack Meteors slammed into the planet. At least the ones that the Tau didn't blow up in orbit with overwhelming munitions. The Ork Attack Meteor is so effective not because of it carrying a fuck load of orcs within it, but because of the chaos that happens when a literal meteor smashes into a city. I mused as I watched several dozen streaks of burning meteors pushing into the atmosphere around the plains my Sect and the neighboring Tau city were built upon. I reached up towards my chest, and I made a humming noise as I dragged out my Heart Saber from my chest. Then, with a step, I flexed my will upon the world with my step, sending me forward a great distance as I folded space between where I was and where I wanted to go. And within but a moment, I was surrounded by the heat of the rushing meteor I had landed upon with my teleport. Which was honestly rather pleasant, all things too, with how I was the embodiment of several suns at this point. Oi! Get off my ship, you git! An orc yelled out as he opened a window in the meteor's side, making my lips twitch before I shook my head. Alright, I will get off, don't worry, I spoke, and then I exhaled with my sword intent rolling off myself in silver streams of energy that focused on my saber, and then I flicked my arm to the side and the stream of sword intent carved through the meteor without it facing any resistance, and then I carefully swung around with my sword leading the beam of sword intent to cut through the other surrounding meteors. The Ork Attack Meteors are being cut in half and facing the forces of entry into the planet's atmosphere. Quickly began breaking up with the orcs screaming into the void as they burnt up in the atmosphere as they fell out of the hollowed-out sections of the meteors. You zoggin' slimy hummy! The orc Shoyuta yelled at me before I flicked my finger at him with a lance of sun's fire, burning him to a crisp, before I heard Matthias on my disciple stick. Master, the flagship Space Hulk is coming down on the planet in Sector S9. I raised an eyebrow at how she hesitated to speak, and I asked curiously. Is there something wrong with the Space Hulk, Matthias? There was a pause before Matthias spoke with confusion. The Space Hulk is clearly an insult, you will see, I am sorry, Master. With another flex of my will, I shrunk space as I stepped towards the planetary sector she mentioned while mentally thanking Isha for making the spatial domain of the planet so malleable to my control. And within a couple of jumps, I reached the massive flagship Space Hulk that was tunneling through the atmosphere as it was flying, more like falling in a controlled manner towards a city. My face twitched as I realized what the fucking flagship looked like. Fucking orcs. Did they see a bunch of human-drawn penises and think it would make the best insult for smashing into worlds or something? As the massive Space Hulk was a central massive ship that was Imperium in design, but with two large attack meteors attached to its back to add more engines for more power. And on the front of the Space Hulk was a massive orc face made out of solid metal. I slammed a ray of sword intent into the Space Hulk, and I frowned as the fucking Geller fields of the Imperium ship were still working somehow, which blocked the majority of my attack. Wide-range attacks won't work. Let's try more concentrated then. I mused to myself as I took a deep breath, and then I exploded in a corona of fiery young flames that I then concentrated into a fist that I slammed into the Geller field surrounding the ship. And the moment my fist slammed into the Geller fields and broke it the tiniest bit, I did the demon thing, and with a crackling noise I space skipped forward and I was upon the ship proper with my sword intent carving into the WAF-enhanced ship. So, although I couldn't carve the ship in half like the other attack meteors, I could still get onto the ship. And even as I got onto the ship, I heard over the ship's box systems. Brace for landing, boys. It's a time for crumpin'. Fucking orcs, I said, and I stabbed my sword into a metal wall as sort of silence hit me, and then my vision wrenched around as the fucking orcs just tilted the ship down, making me float in the air as I held onto my sword, and then a couple of seconds later, it happened. The damned Space Hulk smashed into the world with overwhelming might while I held onto my sword to keep myself steady as the orc armor plate in front of the ship carved through the ground and little obstructions like buildings and fortifications like they weren't even there. Finally, the ship ground down to a still, and I wrenched my sword out of the wall to allow myself to fall onto the new ground, where I hummed and said, I bet the warboss is near the front of the ship. So let's see if I can catch him before he leaves the ship.